Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. In this video I delve into the 3.12 postmortem to see what went well, what didn't, and what's to come. These videos are made possible thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for the support. If you'd like to support the channel even further from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are in the description. So with each patch release now, CIG takes some time to talk us through what they felt went well, what didn't go so well, and what they've learnt for the next time. So today I would like to break down that post into the need to know. Of course, if you do enjoy my content, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you could do the channel a big favour and hit that thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. So kicking off with the vehicle team, they heavily worked on missiles, torpedoes, and countermeasures, with a lot of work done to improve them for 3.12. But the main work is planned for 3.13 with the conversion of missiles and torpedoes to IFCS and the missile operator mode. What they would like to do in the future is to expand countermeasures by giving players better feedback on their own signatures and missile abilities, which, as I say, we will see in 3.13. Now, the changes we got in 3.12 made missiles and countermeasures viable again, so it'll be interesting to see how the conversion to IFCS helps with missile movement consistency, and just what we will be able to do with the missile operator mode. I think there will be quite a few more signatures in the works as well for your ships. So CIG also said that the initial release of the Talon went really well, but there was a few issues they will be fixing as they go, like the screen requiring toggling in Arena Commander, and the Talon Shrike's missile launchers sometimes stop functioning after a large number of missiles have been fired. For the USPU gameplay feature team, because they spent a lot of time creating the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo in 3.11, this encroached into the 3.12 build a little, meaning that they were unable to get some critical issues fixed, which meant other bugs and issues and new things had to be pushed back. So for the future, they plan to expand on the event modularity and reusable assets, as the faster that they can make these events happen, the more time they will have to focus on bug fixing, new content ideas, and other solar systems. They will also improve their pre-production planning so that they can iron out as many facets of the events beforehand, like the colour scheme, the locations, logos, and so on, and finally getting all of the content for the event into a build as soon as possible so that they have more time to ensure that it's all up to snuff. 3.12 also brought the first aspects of the reputation system. Although not visible to the players, it still applies in regards to certain mission givers. Not every mission has been converted to the new system yet, which is an ongoing process over the next couple of quarters. This will all eventually be tied to things like NPC responses, perks and benefits that can be earned by participating in content, tracking player progress through career paths, dictating relationships between the organizations within the game, and a number of other gameplay loops. Now, they felt that it was important to get reputations in even without the UI, however this UI is set to release around Q1, Q2. Now, this new UI will allow players to track their careers with various orgs and key NPCs, exposing information about each one as the player comes across them, encouraging us to travel around and engage with them. This UI is what we got to see an early glimpse of in a recent Inside Star Citizen, and it does look interesting, having a lot of lore that we can read while in our ships based around the characters and the organizations within the verse. Additionally, they are working on the Mission Manager app, which will show what reputation requirements are needed to acquire missions. Reputation, they say, is going to be one of the largest progression mechanics that Star Citizen will have for it outside of the economy, since it is a skill-based game and not driven by leveling or talent tree systems. And now reputation is a service driven on the back end, meaning that all reputation gains can be preserved between patches. Obviously, they would have preferred to release the reputation system alongside the UI, but time wouldn't allow this, and in the future they would like to get features like this more complete with the associated UI and work more with the mission teams to help convert more than they did this time. Finally, for the front-end UI conversion to building blocks, going forwards, they would like to get the next changes more to the final version that will allow them to really streamline the new user experience so that getting into the game for the first time or for returning players is as simple and intuitive as possible. Now, the systems, services and tools team continued to work on the Quantum system, integrating it into services alongside internal presentations of new technology that they will be sharing with us soon. This is the deep dive that we will get from Tony Zurovec in the next few months. The team will also be increasing in size to accommodate the growing need for services and support for Quantum across many aspects of the game, so I'm very happy to hear that they are increasing the staffing to help with the expansion of the game and this vital system. The team is also supporting the Star Citizen economy with data tools to help alleviate the massive amounts of data while they prepare for Quantum to take the reins, and they're looking for better ways to streamline and distribute the work coming to the team, and they have set up automated messaging to supplement the communications coming out of their teams to other department teams. Now this is all major work, and that deep dive cannot come soon enough. I feel like that's going to be quite a big hype builder to see exactly what they're doing and actual in-game versions of what's happening. So moving on to design for the AI torpedo intercept, they felt the AI accuracy is not yet good enough, so they will be looking to improve this to have greater control over how many torpedoes slip through turret defenses. For AI fire mode and targeting priorities, they found that using burst fire puts the AI at a disadvantage compared to players, as fully auto firing increases damage, so they will rebalance the AI burst firing when capacitors are introduced to reduce the effectiveness of holding down the fire button. So I guess there may be a sort of duration limiter to constant fully auto with the capacitor gameplay perhaps, which makes sense. You can't shoot a gun continuously without it overheating or causing problems. So currently for the AI accuracy convergence, the AI is not accurate enough to pose a decent level of threat to the player. The new system tends to miss behind the target's movement instead of in front, so the players don't even see that they're being shot at. So they want to improve the accuracy to make it so that different NPCs have more noticeable accuracy difference between skilled and unskilled AI, and make it overshoot as opposed to undershoot. Regarding capital ship combat behaviours, the tactic selection doesn't consider the AI ship's strength relative to the target enough. For example, when the Idris is fighting a gunship or capital ship, it will attempt to stay at a distance and use its railgun. Now this obviously makes sense, but it can lead to it running away from smaller gunships that it could easily take in a close range fight. So they will iterate on the tactic selection so the AI consider their own ship and target in more detail than just the ship's class, as well as allow the pilot character traits to affect the capital ship behaviour. Now it's quite fascinating to hear them talking about all of the little details they want to cater for when it comes to AI or NPC abilities, and also how a lot of that will vary between skill level and traits of the NPC. All of this is vital when it comes to players browsing the potential NPC crew that they're looking to hire. So for the elevator panels, with the UI and level design teams both working on elevator panels at different times, and the work on this feature kind of stopping and starting, it meant many bugs got missed. So in the future they will make sure that the feature is developed, implemented and tested in one go, so that the bugs are picked up and fixed before release. They will also make sure that the team that owns the feature has time to fix code issues as part of their development cycle. For refining, the team were unable to reach a point early enough where they could balance the refinery loop the way they intended to, so they brought forwards the initial mining rebalance to compensate as best they could until they get the refinery balance to the level they originally wanted. In the future, they will get the UI art playtested much earlier, as it's hard to determine what parts of the refinery screen can be interacted with, and this would have highlighted the issues to the change. So that explains why it's quite a basic system where you can only get half the amount for selling your ores compared to refining. Obviously this will be tuned a lot more, hopefully with 3.13 if this was something they were hoping to get in for 3.12 but didn't have time. But I really do love these refineries, and the UI, in my opinion, is great. It doesn't look fancy, it does what it needs to. It's an industrial location, so the UI doesn't need to have all this fancy cool detail, it just needs to be straightforward. Anyway, for the new mining update UI, this is still being tweaked, as it is more complicated to implement due to there being various vehicles that use it with the ROC, Prospector and Mole. And with future tech coming soon, they hope to broadcast the UI in a slightly more visually appealing way that works better than the current implementation. And in the future they want to iterate more quickly, as they now have a firmer understanding of building blocks and its benefits. So personally, I really appreciate this new mining UI. It is way more useful than the previous version. I'm not really sure what they're going to do to improve it further, but in regards to building blocks, it sounds as though CIG are still getting acquainted with this new tech, as you would expect for any new piece of tech that comes in for the first time. but it also seems like they may need to build some tools to help streamline its implementation. Of course, it is a much better system than the previous UI system, but there appears to be a few teething problems to iron out. So moving on to core gameplay, for the multi-tool tractor beam there was a few secondary mechanics that they would have liked to have shipped with its release, but they ran out of time, specifically allowing the manipulation of our trajectory using our suit thrusters when using the grapple hook in 0G. Unfortunately, with EVA being converted to IFCS at the same time, they had to sidetrack that until later on. Something that they are trying to improve is to give the mission designers more time to allow them to integrate all of the different features in meaningful ways and getting simpler versions of these features into the mission and level designers' hands sooner so that they could have played with it for a little bit more time. Now, I really like the idea of this. Whenever a feature is coming to release, the mission team try to develop missions and ways for the players to utilize them with their releases. Otherwise, it just sits there without a purpose. Having the mission team spend more time with a certain feature, even if those features are unfinished and in their basic versions, means they will have more time to create better missions or experiences to use these features so that we will then get a better experience in the PU when using them. So it's a great idea to get them into their hands as soon as possible. Moving on, with the initial release of Weapon Zeroing, due to the lack of sufficient available testing time, Zeroing was not working correctly when the physics patches for the environment streamed out. Now in the future, they will most definitely ensure that the feature has been thoroughly tested when completed, rather than wait for the more traditional go-no-go meetings. Now while this didn't affect the feature's release, it did have knock-on effects for future work as they had to reprioritize. For the Bearing FS9 LMG, they were actually using that weapon as an opportunity to work out the design intentions for all other LMGs, hoping to deliver an update across the board. But unfortunately, they also ran out of time for these existing weapons, so they have made plans to update the existing LMGs to raise their quality to that of the FS9. Not sure if this is coming in 3.13, but that is the plan. In the future, they also plan to overhaul all the weapon categories, so we should see that each weapon they release slightly improves on those that have come before it. For locations, with the Planet Improvements and Polish Pass, they say it was the first opportunity the team has had to introduce the new and improved workflows which were developed when creating the Pyro's planets and moons. This included having the time and focus to go deeper on the global painting process, to be more accurate to temperature parameters, and to have a better blend and distribution of hues. The focus in general was to do more with less, so rather than use many types of geology all in the same space, they would just use one or two that would really work well together, and the end result is something they say that is much more realistic and natural. They also now have biome accumulation, which means assets can procedurally receive a thin layer of material on their top surface depending on the biome, so for example, sand gathering on rocks on Daymar. Now of course not all of the moons got this treatment, with the rest coming in 3.13, but they also noticed that many of the moons are becoming too close together visually and they are losing that diversity, so more assets will help to reduce art fatigue and improve the visual diversity, so they are investing time and energy into more asset packs. Now personally, I am so impressed with the updated planets and moons. They look incredible, and it's always great to hear that they are learning tons of better techniques to improve them. I'm excited to see Pyro's moons and planets. I do feel like they will look completely different to that of Stanton's, and I just want to get exploring them. So for spacescaping and gas clouds, there was a lot they needed to figure out in terms of performance, and there is a great deal that they can do for pipeline refinement. There is also some variable noise in some lighting scenarios that they would like to reduce in the future as performance allows it. They are already improving their development workflow and looking at ways to improve the process, like exploring how they can tie together the background spacescape into more mini-system based forms, which then lead to smaller volumetric gas pockets. And for future gameplay opportunities, they're looking to encourage a risk-reward gameplay inside the gas pockets with elements like lighting, radiation, temperature ranges, and flight handling. Now it really sounds like these gas clouds are going to be vast areas for gameplay, and I can imagine some missions requiring players to spend quite long periods of time inside them, maybe searching for various things and getting ambushed, and then having to find a way out if they get lost. And I'm looking forward to seeing how these are actually used in missions in the future. So moving on to tech, for 3.12 the graphics team focused on improving stability and fixing bugs with the various graphics features utilised in the release. The team also managed to resolve dozens of other bugs ranging from popping shadows to overbright camera exposure. Now, although more time was spent on stability and quality than feature work, they did manage to maintain good progress on the new Gen 12 renderer, which will be their primary focus for early 2021. Glad to hear that it is just early 2021 and not the whole of 2021, so they must be expecting to finish the Gen 12 work in the first half of this year. The physics team worked on volumetric soft body prototypes, as well as the rendering of volumetric deformation, and various optimizations were done in physics. For the renderer, they continued with the ongoing Gen 12 transition and related refactoring. In the shader system, they cleaned up all the shader reload code, which will improve shader editing during development and provide a much improved response when changing system spec settings. They also started a large refactor of the shader cache backend system, as it's quite outdated and a constant source of grief with regards to maintenance and Gen 12 fitness. Most of the time though was spent on volumetric cloud rendering, with the initial draft of the cloud renderer implemented, and work on volumetric cloud shadows made good progress. Work will commence on improvements to local cloud shaping, but there is still a lot of work to be done before release. So some amazing work being done here, and we are seeing many improvements to atmospheres in 3.12. They look phenomenal, so all this work on clouds I expect will really pay off. And although they do say there is still a lot of work to do, I'm sure it will be worth the wait. Now, there's been a ton of work done for core engine systems, which you can read in this postmortem or on the monthly reports, and based on telemetry from the PU and the PTU, they continued their ongoing investigations into memory usage, and as such, the engine-wide memory allocator and memory tracking system was substantially refactored and improved. As I say, there is a lot of information regarding the work these teams have been doing. All of it I have actually mentioned and covered in the monthly reports, so I won't delve into it here, but I will link my PU monthly report video in the description below should you want to watch that. So in other tech, for the backend, they were able to increase the performance of the variable service loadouts and the main persistence cache service. The stability of the backend increased greatly, surpassing the performance and reliability that they have had in previous releases, and their low-level networking code was updated to improve both performance, scalability, and robustness. Plus, they made several fixes and optimizations to the transaction service, rentals, and the entitlement processor. Now, in preparation for persistent streaming, they are now able to seed the initial state of the universe into the persistent database by creating all dynamic entities prior to simulation. The dedicated game server process will then stream persistent entities, so spawning and despawning, from that database during simulation. This is an important stepping stone for a fully persistent universe. It is exciting hearing how the work is progressing and actually working. This is what will allow everything in the game to be physicalized and persist. Now, they have introduced multiple parallel spawn queues on each game server to help optimize, which allows them to spawn multiple distinct locations like Lorville and New Babbage in parallel on separate threads on the same server, instead of spawning them one at a time, which will really reduce the wait time. For desyncs, how the engine measures the passage of time underwent a complete overhaul, with accuracy being improved in both the measurement of time and its synchronization between the server and client. Work was also done to eliminate errors that could result in simulation time passing differently on the server and client, along with smaller bugs that had caused timing errors to grow on long-running servers were also fixed, with network syncing of vehicles and physical objects being updated to take full advantage of these improvements. And the accumulated results of all of these changes was a significant reduction in latency and desync in many areas. Also, this work was a necessary step towards server meshing, where simulating the game across multiple game servers would have made desync worse. Now, this work is absolutely vital to getting the game in the state that it needs to be. Hopefully we will see some more of these improvements to the desync in the meantime while they continue working on server meshing, but that is all impressive stuff. So in preparation for server meshing, the team performed a sweep on the remaining tasks to convert code to the Authority API. Over the last 12 months, there has been a coordinated effort by all of the teams to update the game end engine code to this new system, and thanks to their work, a large majority of these tasks have been completed, and all of these efforts have actually reduced the number of remaining tasks into single digits. So they are really moving on this and getting there. Finally, in a server mesh, a client may connect to many different servers during a game session, and part of the work towards server meshing requires separating the process of connecting a client to a server into distinct stages. These stages can then be executed independently without requiring the client to completely abandon its existing game session. So significant progress has been made towards this, although there is more work to be done. Whew. So that is the 3.12 post-mortem. We are getting closer and closer to this dream, and hearing about all of this work coming along, and much of it nearing completion, is music to my ears. Although there is still a lot more to do, progress this year will be significant, and I expect we will begin to see much of the benefits coming in as they continue to work it out. But with that said, that is it for this video. If you do enjoy my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button and helping the channel to grow. And if you want to be notified when my videos go live, tick that notification bell. Also, I stream 4 days a week over on twitch.tv/supermacbrothers So if you want to come and hang out and talk Star Citizen and watch me play the game, be sure to follow the link in the description below. Again, a massive thank you to my patrons and channel members for allowing me to do this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.